The revolver gleamed under the artificial lights of the Academy's weapons lab, a stark contrast to the sleek plasma rifles and multi-barreled energy cannons surrounding it. The alien students burst into laughter. "Is this a joke?" Karin, a Martian cadet with shimmering emerald skin, smirked, tapping a clawed finger on the glass display case. "That thing belongs in a museum, not on a battlefield." Alex Carter, the lone human cadet in the room, crossed his arms. "It's not about how it looks. It's about what it can do." The snickering only grew louder. Thalver, a towering Zorvanian with bioluminescent veins pulsing down his arms, tilted his head curiously. "Primitive mechanisms. No targeting assistance, no energy stabilization, no multi-fire modes. Just bang, bang." He mimed firing the revolver, then chuckled, his luminescent eyes glowing faintly. Alex felt his jaw tighten but forced a smile. "You might think it's outdated, but simplicity has its advantages." "Right," Karin sneered. "Like how a stone is simpler than a laser scalpel." Before Alex could retort, the room's intercom buzzed. A synthesized voice cut through the chatter. "Cadets, report to the simulation chamber. Your first live combat exercise begins in 10 minutes. The room instantly fell silent, the weight of the announcement shifting the mood. This wasn't a mere demonstration, it was the Academy's infamous Level 10 simulation, a gauntlet designed to push every trainee to their limits. The simulation chamber was a marvel of interstellar engineering, capable of replicating any environment, from volcanic wastelands to frozen tundras. Today, it presented a dense, alien jungle, with towering, bioluminescent trees and an oppressive humidity that made Alex's uniform cling to his skin. The cadets assembled in teams of 4, each given a mission brief. Alex's group included Karin, Thalver, and a diminutive, sharp-eyed Threxian named Laura. The aliens eyed Alex's revolver with disdain as they loaded their plasma rifles. "You're really bringing that?" Karin said, pointing at the weapon holstered on Alex's hip. Alex shrugged. "You've got your toys. I've got mine." Their objective was straightforward: infiltrate an enemy outpost, neutralize automated defenses, and extract a data core. However, the simulation's AI-controlled enemies were notorious for their adaptability, and failure rates for first-timers were over 70%. As the countdown began, Alex checked his revolver, spinning the cylinder with practiced ease. 6 shots. No energy cells, no overheating risks, just raw mechanical precision. The simulation started with a deafening roar as the jungle came alive. Robotic sentries buzzed overhead, scanning the terrain with piercing beams of light. Thalver's drone darted ahead, relaying data to the team's HUDs. "Split formation," Thalver commanded, his voice clipped and efficient. "We'll rely on stealth and suppressive fire." As the group moved through the undergrowth, Alex noticed something the others missed. The robots weren't just scanning randomly, they were coordinating, herding the team toward a kill zone. "Wait," Alex hissed, grabbing Karin's arm. "What now?" she snapped, yanking free. "They're funneling us into an ambush," Alex said. Karin rolled her eyes. "You've got a revolver, and now you're a tactician? Stick to shooting things and let us handle strategy." Before Alex could respond, a series of sharp mechanical clicks echoed through the jungle. The ambush had already begun. The cadets find themselves surrounded as the first wave of robotic sentries descends upon them, their plasma rifles faltering against the onslaught. Alex draws his revolver. "Let's see how outdated this really is." The jungle exploded with sound, metallic screeches, bursts of plasma fire, and the rhythmic pounding of mechanical legs slicing through the underbrush. The robotic sentries, sleek and spider-like, emerged from the shadows with glowing red optics fixed on their prey. "Hold your ground," Thalver shouted, his plasma rifle emitting a high-pitched whine as it powered up. He unleashed a flurry of neon blue bolts, illuminating the dense jungle in brief flashes. Karin delved for cover behind a thick, bioluminescent tree, her rifle spewing rapid bursts of plasma. "Carter, do something useful or get out of the way." Alex didn't respond. He crouched low, revolver in hand, observing the chaos. The alien cadets relied on sheer firepower, saturating the area with plasma bolts. But the robots were fast, darting between trees and zigzagging through the undergrowth. Advanced as their weapons were, the cadets couldn't keep up. A sentry lunged toward Karin, its bladed appendages whirring. She fired, missing by inches as it closed in. Bang! The revolver's sharp crack cut through the cacophony. The sentry's red eye shattered, and it collapsed into a twitching heap. Karin's head snapped toward Alex, her expression a mix of shock and grudging respect. Lucky shot. Alex chambered another round, his movements fluid and deliberate. Luck's got nothing to do with it. As the battle raged, the flaws in the aliens' approach became glaringly obvious. Plasma rifles overheated after prolonged fire, and Thalver's drone, overloaded with data from the enemy's rapid movements, crashed into the dirt in a shower of sparks. They're adapting. Thalver growled, yanking a secondary weapon from his belt. They're smarter than your tech, Alex countered, picking off another sentry with a perfectly placed shot. He moved with purpose, each pull of the trigger calculated, each bullet hitting its mark. Smarter than you, maybe, Karin snapped, but her tone lacked its usual venom. Laura, the Thryxian, chirped nervously from her perch in the trees. Incoming reinforcements. 20, no, 30 sentries. The cadets exchanged uneasy glances. They were already struggling to hold their ground. Fallback isn't an option, Alex said, reloading his revolver. If we don't adapt, we're dead. Adapt how? Karin demanded. Your rifles are too dependent on perfect conditions. This jungle's messing with their systems. We need to focus on precision and efficiency, not brute force. Efficiency, Thalver said dryly, gesturing to Alex's weapon. With 6 shots? 6 shots is all I need if I make them count. The group regrouped under Alex's direction, reluctantly following his lead. Instead of relying on plasma barrages, they moved with intent, drawing the sentries into choke points where Alex's revolver and precise bursts from their rifles could disable them. Alex showed them how to aim for the sentries' exposed joints, where their armor was weakest. Karin, initially skeptical, began landing her shots with unnerving accuracy. The tide shifted. What had been a frantic, chaotic firefight turned into a methodical dismantling of the enemy. Even Thalver seemed impressed, though he masked it behind gruff commands. By the time the last sentry fell, the cadets were battered but victorious. Alex holstered his revolver, its cylinder still warm. As the group caught their breath, the jungle grew eerily silent. Then, a new sound emerged, a deep, guttural hum that vibrated the air. Laura's voice trembled. That's not part of the simulation. The hum grew louder, deep and resonant, sending ripples through the humid air. The cadets froze, their breaths shallow as they scanned the jungle. Bioluminescent foliage trembled, as if the forest itself were warning them. That's not a drone, Alex murmured, tightening his grip on the revolver. No, Thalver replied, his voice low. That's something worse. A shadow shifted in the trees. Then another. And another. From the undergrowth emerged towering humanoid machines, their frames bristling with weapons and armor that gleamed ominously under the simulated moonlight. These weren't training bots. Karin took a cautious step back. What are those things? The Academy doesn't use tech like this. They don't, Thalver said, eyes narrowing. These are military grade. Somebody hacked the system. Before anyone could respond, the machines raised their arms, plasma cannons glowing to life. Run! Alex shouted. The jungle erupted as the first blast hit, obliterating a tree in a fiery explosion. The cadets scattered, diving into the undergrowth for cover as the machines advanced with ruthless precision. The team regrouped behind a fallen tree, the air thick with smoke and the acrid scent of burnt foliage. Laura clutched her rifle tightly, her usually sharp eyes wide with fear. This is sabotage, Alex said, scanning the area. Someone wants us dead. Brilliant deduction, Sherlock, Karin snapped, her voice tinged with panic. What do we do about it? We adapt, Alex replied, already assessing their dwindling options. Those things are armored. Plasma won't penetrate easily. We need to hit weak points, joints, sensors, anything exposed. That's great for your 6-shooter, Thalver retorted, but the rest of us aren't carrying antiques. Alex ignored the jab. We can't outgun them, but we can outthink them. These things are designed for brute force, not strategy. If we draw them into tighter terrain, we can limit their mobility. Karin shook her head. Tighter terrain? You want to corner those things? Do you have a better idea? Alex snapped. The Martian cadet hesitated, then grudgingly nodded. The group moved swiftly, navigating the dense jungle with as much stealth as they could muster. Alex took point, his revolver ready, while Thalver used what remained of his drone to map out the machine's movements. Two coming from the north, one circling to flank, Thalver whispered. We'll take the two first, Alex said. Ambush them at the ravine. Karin glanced at him. If this doesn't work, I'm blaming you. Alex smirked. I'll take that as a compliment. At the ravine, the team positioned themselves behind the natural cover of rocks and dense vegetation. When the first machine appeared, Alex aimed carefully. The revolver cracked, and the machine's left knee joint exploded, sending it crashing to the ground. Karin and Laura opened fire on the second machine, targeting its exposed sensors. It faltered, plasma bolts scorching its frame. Thalver lobbed a makeshift explosive, finishing it off in a fiery blast. For a brief moment, the group felt a flicker of hope. Then the third machine arrived. This one was different, sleeker, faster, and armed with weaponry far beyond anything the cadets had faced. It fired a salvo of missiles, forcing the team to scatter again. As Alex dived for cover, a missile struck mere feet from him, throwing him to the ground. Dazed and bleeding, he looked up to see the machine looming over him, its weapons charging for the kill. The hulking machine loomed over Alex, its weaponry humming with lethal energy. He rolled to his side, his revolver heavy in his hand, but the distance to the machine's weak points was too great. The barrel wouldn't penetrate its core. Alex, move! Karin's voice cut through the haze, followed by a burst of plasma fire that streaked past the machine's head, drawing its attention. It swiveled toward her, giving Alex the moment he needed. He sprang to his feet and dashed into the underbrush, his heart pounding as the machine's weapons unleashed hell on Karin's position. The team regrouped near a jagged outcrop of rocks, breathing hard, their faces etched with exhaustion and fear. Tell me you've got a plan, Carter, Thalver growled, clutching his rifle. Alex glanced at the group, his mind racing. Their weapons were inadequate against the machine's armor, and retreating deeper into the jungle would only delay the inevitable. They needed to stop it here. The only way we're taking that thing down is from the inside, Alex said finally. Laura's antennae twitched nervously. From the inside? Alex nodded. These machines are remote-controlled. If we can disable its command core, it'll shut down. Karin scoffed. And how exactly do you propose we get close enough to do that without getting turned into vapor? Alex's eyes settled on Thalver's drone, still sparking from its earlier crash. We rig the drone with an EMP charge and send it straight at the core. Thalver frowned. The drone's barely functional. And we don't have an EMP. Then we improvise, Alex said firmly. He pulled a plasma cell from his belt, holding it up. We can overload one of these. If we time it right, it'll fry the machine systems long enough to take it down. The group fell silent, the weight of the plan settling over them. It's insane, Karin muttered. It's our only shot, Alex countered. Unless you want to keep running until it picks us off one by one. The next few minutes were a blur of frantic preparation. Thalver worked on stabilizing the drone's propulsion system while Alex modified the plasma cell, carefully adjusting its charge. Laura kept watch, her sharp eyes scanning the jungle for any sign of the machine. Karin paced nervously. If this doesn't work. It'll work, Alex cut her off. His voice was steady, but his hands trembled as he secured the makeshift EMP to the drone. Finally, Thalver stepped back, wiping sweat from his brow. It's ready. As much as it'll ever be. Alex glanced at the team. I'll draw its attention. Thalver, you guide the drone. Karin and Laura, provide covering fire. We only get one shot at this, so make it count. The machine appeared moments later, crashing through the trees like a force of nature. Alex stood in the open, revolver in hand. "Hey, scrap heap," he shouted, firing a shot at its chest. The bullet pinged harmlessly off its armor, but the machine locked onto him instantly. It charged, plasma cannons lighting up. Alex sprinted, weaving between trees as bolts of energy exploded around him. "Now, Thalver!" The drone shot into the air, wobbling slightly as it approached the machine. Karin and Laura opened fire, distracting it long enough for the drone to latch onto its back. Alex turned just in time to see the plasma cell detonate. The explosion sent the machine into violent spasms, its systems flickering erratically. For a moment, it seemed to power down, then its optics flared red again, brighter than ever. "It's not stopping!" Karin yelled, panic rising. Alex's mind raced, searching for a solution as the machine prepared to unleash another deadly assault. The jungle shuddered as the machine reactivated, its frame sparking with electrical surges from the improvised EMP blast. Its optics burned crimson, and its weapons systems whirred ominously, cycling up for another deadly barrage. "It's not going down!" Karin shouted, firing her plasma rifle at the machine's head. The bolt scorched its armor but failed to penetrate. Alex clenched his jaw, hard hammering as he reloaded the revolver. Each motion was deliberate, but his mind raced. The EMP had damaged it, he could see the spasmodic twitching of its joints, but it wasn't enough. They needed a definitive blow. "Focus fire on its legs." Alex barked, his voice cutting through the chaos. "We have to bring it down." The cadets obeyed, their shots peppering the machine's legs, targeting the exposed servos and hydraulic joints. Thalver lobbed an incendiary charge, igniting one of its stabilizers. The machine staggered but stayed upright, its targeting system locking onto them. "Get down!" Alex yelled, diving for cover as a missile streaked past and detonated against the rocks. The shockwave knocked Karin to the ground, and she cried out, clutching her arm. "We're running out of time." Thalver growled, his voice taut with desperation. The machine advanced relentlessly, its steps shaking the ground. Alex's revolver felt heavier than ever in his hand, the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. 6 bullets. That was all he had. His eyes scanned the machine's damaged frame, searching for a weakness. Then he saw it, a faint flicker of light beneath its chest plate. The power core. The EMP blast had partially exposed it, leaving a narrow gap in its armored casing. "That's our target," Alex said, pointing to the core. "But I can't hit it from here. I need to get closer." Karin stared at him, wide-eyed. "Closer? You'll be vaporized before you get within 10 meters. "Not if you keep it distracted," Alex countered. He turned to Thalver. "Can you overload another plasma cell?" Thalver hesitated, then nodded. "It'll take a few minutes." "You've got one," Alex said firmly. As Thalver worked, Alex and the others split up to divert the machine's attention. Karin gritted her teeth against the pain in her arm, firing controlled bursts at its optics. Laura climbed a nearby tree, using her vantage point to land precise shots on its shoulder joints. "Come on, you overgrown toaster," Karin taunted, drawing the machine's fire. Meanwhile, Alex moved silently through the underbrush, using the chaos to his advantage. He ducked behind a fallen tree, then sprinted to a boulder, inching closer to the hulking machine. "Ready!" Thalver called, hurling the overcharged plasma cell toward Alex. Catching it mid-stride, Alex bolted into the open, the glowing device clutched tightly in his hand. The machine's sensors locked onto him immediately, its weapons swiveling to track his movement. Time seemed to slow as Alex closed the distance. He could feel the heat of the plasma cannon charging, hear the whine of its targeting systems. His revolver was in his other hand, its barrel aimed squarely at the exposed core. "Now or never," he muttered. He fired. The revolver cracked, and the bullet punched through the gap in the armor, striking the power core. The machine convulsed violently, its systems overloading. Alex didn't stop. He hurled the overcharged plasma cell directly into the opening, then dove for cover. The explosion that followed was deafening, a brilliant burst of light and fire that engulfed the machine. Shrapnel rained down as its frame collapsed, smoldering and inert. The cadets emerged from their cover, staring at the wreckage in stunned silence. Before anyone could celebrate, a low rumble echoed through the jungle. Laura's voice was barely a whisper. "There's more of them." Alex turned toward the sound, revolver in hand, ready for what came next. The rumble grew louder, a metallic chorus of grinding servos and pounding footsteps. From the dense jungle, more machines emerged, 2, then 4, then an entire squadron. Their crimson optics lit up the night, each one an implacable force of destruction. "We can't fight that many," Karin shouted, cradling her injured arm as she stumbled back. Alex's revolver was almost empty, its weight a grim reminder of their dwindling options. He surveyed the group. Karin was injured, Laura's ammunition was nearly gone, and Thalver was frantically trying to recalibrate his broken drone. They were outmatched and outgunned. But not out of ideas. "We're not fighting them," Alex said, his voice cutting through the rising panic. "We're outsmarting them." Alex turned his focus to the fallen machine, its mangled frame still smoldering from the explosion. "These things are networked, right? Controlled remotely?" Thalver nodded, catching on. "Yeah, they share data through a centralized system." "Why?" Alex gestured to the wreckage. "If we can access its core, we might be able to trigger a shutdown signal, or at least scramble their coordination long enough to escape." "That's insane," Karin said, her tone more resigned than defiant. "Insane's all we've got left," Alex replied. The team sprang into action, working against the clock. Thalver pried open the machine's scorched chestplate, his hands a blur as he sifted through its fried circuitry. Laura kept watch from above, her sharp eyes tracking the advancing machines. "They're getting closer," she called, her voice tight with urgency. "Stall them," Alex ordered, grabbing his revolver and heading to Karin. He handed her his last 2 rounds. "Use these wisely." Karin stared at him, her usual sarcasm replaced by a rare moment of respect. "You'd better make this work, Carter." "I intend to," he said, turning back to Thalver. "How's it looking?" "Almost there," Thalver muttered, sweat dripping from his brow. "I can hack into the network, but this core is half fried. It won't hold for long." The first wave of machines reached their position, their weapons charging. Karin and Laura opened fire, targeting weak points Alex had taught them earlier. A few machines faltered, their movements jerky and uncoordinated, but the others pressed on. Thalver let out a triumphant shout. "Got it! Uploading a disruption signal now." The damaged machine's core emitted a piercing whine, followed by a pulse of energy that rippled through the jungle. The advancing machines froze mid-step, their optics flickering as the signal scrambled their systems. "It's working!" Laura exclaimed. Alex didn't waste a second. "Move! We've got to get out of range before they reboot." The cadets sprinted through the jungle, adrenaline fueling their battered bodies. Behind them, the machines remained locked in place, their towering frames eerily still. The jungle seemed to hold its breath as the group finally broke through the simulation's perimeter. They collapsed onto the grass outside the chamber, gasping for air. The academy staff rushed toward them, their faces a mix of relief and confusion. "What happened in there?" one of the instructors demanded. Alex sat up, his revolver still in hand. The simulation wasn't the problem. Someone sabotaged it. Those weren't training bots. Hours later, the cadets stood before the Academy's council, recounting their harrowing experience. Despite the sabotage, their teamwork and ingenuity had ensured their survival. Karin glanced at Alex as they were dismissed. "I hate to admit it, but you're not bad for a guy with a toy gun." Alex smirked. "It's not the weapon. It's how you use it." The story spread quickly throughout the academy, and Alex's revolver, once mocked as a relic, became a symbol of resilience and human ingenuity. Even the aliens, with all their advanced technology, couldn't help but admit that sometimes old-fashioned tools and unrelenting determination could make all the difference.